Now, let's understand how these four parts, the trigger, the function runtime, the input bindings, the output bindings, work together. Think of an Azure function as a tiny automation worker. It doesn't wake up on its own. Something has to trigger it. And that's your trigger. It's what starts your function. The runtime is the invisible orchestrator, detecting events, creating execution context, opening streams, handling retries, scaling, and logging. Input binding brings the data into your function. Your code executes business logic, for example, moving the blob from uploads to processed. Finally, output binding writes the processed data out automatically. So the trigger answers the question when to run. It wakes up your function. The input binding answers the question where's the data. It brings data in. Output binding answers the question where to send the result. And in simple terms, it sends the data out. Runtime takes care of how it all runs. It handles the glue, retries, and scaling. And you as a developer, you need to worry about what you do with the data and the processing logic. Focus only on the logic. Now, the triggers can be any of the Azure resources which we have in the Azure environment. It could be a timer trigger, it could be a HTTP trigger, it could be a blob trigger, it could be an event grid trigger, it could be any DB triggers, live triggers like signaler triggers, or it could be any of the service bus message or event hub triggers. So these could be any of the things that could trigger your function or wake up your function according to what we have in Azure. And the output binding or the destination of the data could be any of these resources along with other resources in Azure. So it could be a blob storage, after your code runs, you could write the data back to Azure blobs or any database like Cosmos or SQL. You could send it to a signaler endpoint to publish it or broadcast to several listeners. You could also send a message to the service bus queue. You can write to event hubs, or you can send an event back to event grid. So what you see on the left are the triggers that could trigger your Azure function, and what you see on the right are the destination or the sources where the data could end up after executing your function. So understanding this entire concept in a nutshell: number one, triggers wake up your Azure function. Number two, the Azure runtime brings in the data, glues the trigger, orchestrates execution of your function,